Way to go, Tic Tac!
That's how you punch.
Wakanda forever!
You wouldn't have heard of me.
Let me put you on hold.
Dance off, bro! He's a friend from work!
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
What up, guys? It's Dom, and welcome back to another movie review. Today we are going over and ranking Spectral. Spectral, released in 2016, written and directed by Nick Matthew. A sci-fi thriller story centered on a special ops team that is dispatched to fight supernatural beings. Now, I really wasn't sure if I was going to like this movie, but the longer I watched it, the more I found myself enjoying it, and I think it's because the premise was so intriguing. So without further ado, let's just get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. Now, I loved the plot of this movie for one specific reason, and that is the intriguing factor. That I wanted to figure out what these things were, how they were made, why they exist. And I was trying to figure that out through the whole movie, which kept me on the edge of my seat. It kept me engaged with the movie, trying to figure out all these different things at the same time that they are. So I thought that was an excellent idea to do because it sucked me in and made me want to keep watching the movie. And otherwise, it is kind of just like a war movie. Like, these guys are at war, and you're just watching the special ops team go from just trying to continue the war and taking a pause on it and trying to first overcome this supernatural beings that are targeting not only their side but the other side as well. So I thought that was a fresh change of pace compared to other war movies where it's just, okay, you know who the two sides are, they're just fighting each other. There was, in this one, since there's that third factor coming in where they not necessarily team up, but they have to realize that, okay, there's priorities here that we have to take on. And I just thought it was a fresh change of pace and very enjoyable and definitely engaging. The second essential aspect is attraction. The part that attracted me to this movie was 100% the concept and the premise. I think that carried the movie a lot. Without it, it wouldn't be as good. But because it was there, because I was on the edge of my seat, because I was very interested in finding out what could these spectrals be and brainstorming constantly, it made it a way better viewing experience. And I think that's really important with the type of movie like this, because if it was just a sci-fi war movie, it probably wouldn't really be that good. But because they added this element of thought into the viewing experience, I think that's what they were really going for, and that's what made this movie really good. The third essential aspect is theme. So I know this might be a stretch, but I think the message that this movie was really trying to come across was that there doesn't have to be an answer for everything. The main character, Klein, he was the main researcher that created these goggles and tech to actually spot these spectrals and see them even though they're not visible to the naked eye. And he, since he's a scientist, wants just everything to have an answer. He wants everything to be proved by science. And towards the end of the movie, he finds out that that's not always possible. So maybe that's the theme of this movie. It might be a stretch, but if that's not it, there isn't really one. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. I thought the dialogue in this movie was really good. I mean, there wasn't any discrepancies I saw. All the characters felt like they were having real conversations, definitely sounded like real people, and hearing Klein explain his whole process of not only creating the tech and the reasonings behind what he thinks they are and him trying to brainstorm what they could be, that really felt like real, and that he used scientific terms that, sure, my small brain sometimes didn't understand what it meant, but I think that it made him sound even more professional and more like he knew what he was talking about, which helped with the realism that made me think these conversations were so real. The fifth essential aspect is acting. Now, the acting in this movie I thought was also really good. All the characters felt like real people. Nothing that was really Oscar-worthy in this movie, but I do have to give credit to James Badge-Dale, who played Klein. He was the main character, he was the researcher, and he was the main scientist behind the whole thing, trying to figure everything out. The way that he described his whole process, the way that he acted in this movie, definitely made it 100 times better. I feel like, I mean, I'm sure many actors could have portrayed this character and done it well. It's just, since I've seen him in this role, I can't really see anyone else do it because he did it so well. So I have to give special props to him because he 100% nailed this role, and he definitely made the character much more believable than I can even hope for. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. I think they did good in cinematography in both visual and emotional. With the visual, the spectrals look good. They made them look realistic for what they were. And the trail that they leave behind, almost a Quicksilver from Age of Ultron type trail, made them actually have some depth to the visuals, which is good. And the emotional, they did something that movies don't really do, and they had a lot of weight. They killed characters that I never expected were going to die, and they had a lot of balls when it came to doing that. And it made the emotional toll that it put on the viewers a lot higher, which in a movie like this, it was really good because it made you actually realize that this is more real than just, oh, you root for the good guys win in the end all the time. So that's something that does take balls, and I think that that was a great choice and definitely enhanced this movie. The seventh essential aspect is editing. This movie is an hour and 47 minutes long. I think that's good length. They knew how to pace the story well and get to an ending that makes sense and is satisfying to the viewers without having too many gaps of just dead air there that didn't really need to be there. So I think an hour and 47 was great. They had enough time to do everything, but not so much that it was too long. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. This movie had some kind of soundtrack, but it wasn't really anything memorable. So let's move on. The ninth essential aspect is directing. Now, I think it's the director's job to take these previous 8 essential aspects, put them together to make a movie that's worth watching. And I definitely think he did. So the director of this movie is Nick Matthew. And this was actually the first movie he's ever written or directed. It's just the first movie he's ever had anything to do with, which I think as one-timer, it's crazy. It's crazy how good this movie is. And I'm surprised he hasn't done any more since or any more before that even. So I have to say, for this being your only movie, you did a great job. And the 10th essential aspect is time. Will this movie stand the test of time? Sadly, I don't think so, because this movie is already 8 years old. And the reviews aren't too good. There isn't even too many of them. And I feel like a lot of people don't know what this movie is. And I'm not sure, this might be a Netflix original. I know I watched it on Netflix, but I'm not 100% sure if it's only on Netflix. So I mean, I don't know. I guess it might not stand the test of time. Maybe it just hasn't gotten to that point where people are looking back at this movie. But hopefully, if enough people see this review, they go back and see it, because I think it is a good watch. Now, on to the reviews. So, Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 78%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it a 53%, and IMDb gave it a 63%. Now, I do not agree with the 53 or the 63. Let's get them out there. I really think that the only reason they would have put them that low is if they didn't think the concept was as interesting as I thought it was, which is understandable. And 78%, I also understand that. I mean, just like I just said for the other two, if you don't like the concept as much, this movie is heavily carried by it, so you wouldn't enjoy the movie as much. But I personally, I loved it, which is why I also think 78 is too low. I think I would put it somewhere in the 80s. I think that would be a great place to put it, and just exactly where it needs to be, because I like the concept enough where it's up there, but I know that the movie isn't perfect, so it can't be too high up there. And finally, the rankings. Where will Spectral rank in its year, decade, and in all time? Let's find out. Starting in 2016, it's going to be second, above X-Men Apocalypse, and below Deadpool. Now, it's above X-Men Apocalypse because I just think the concept is a lot stronger and a lot more interesting in Spectral than Apocalypse. And even though Apocalypse does have an interesting premise and it does have good characters and some good acting and dialogue, I just think the acting and dialogue in Spectral is better, and the concept is definitely way better because of how intrigued I am. And I can't give up that viewing experience of trying to figure that out. Obviously it won't be as good on a rewatch, but as watching it for the first time, I was just so engaged with the movie that it just put it up that much higher. And it's below Deadpool because Deadpool had few, if any, problems with the movie. And even though I'm singing Spectral's praises right now, it wasn't perfect. It had some problems. It had some dull moments sometimes. I feel like there was not a single dull moment in Deadpool. I loved that movie so much that the entertainment is off the charts. That was terrible. Charts, and the comedy and action packed movie was just I just can't put anything above that for now, especially not Spectral. And in the 2010s, it's going to be fifth, above Logan and below X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, above Logan was much harder. Now, these movies are really close because I love the acting and characters in Logan. I think it is better and more engaging than in Spectral, but the premise is way better in Spectral than in Logan. So I really had to get nitpicky, and I was thinking, okay, the acting is slightly better in Logan than in Spectral, but the concept is way better in Spectral than in Logan. So that's really the one thing that clicked it and said, okay, I'm putting it over. And it's below X-Men Days of Future Past because I think that premise is matching this one. I think going the whole X-Men gang going back in time, trying to stop a major event and all of that, I was so intrigued with that story. Even every single time I watch it, I've watched it so many times, and every single time I watch it, I still am engaged with the story. I'm still excited to see what happens. And I gotta say, Spectral would not have that. If I watched Spectral again, I would enjoy the movie, and I still love seeing how they figure it out. It's just since I've already figured it out, it doesn't have that engaging factor while you're watching it for the first time. So I had to put X-Men Days of Future Past above it because it's just it's the rewatchability. And in all time, it's going to be 7th, above Speak No Evil and below Toy Story. Now, I'm not even going to talk about why it's below Toy Story. Toy Story is an amazing film, and it also barely has any problems. And I just can't put it above. And I'm stuttering so much I don't understand why. But we're almost done with the video, and it's above Speak No Evil because I think both holy crap, Dom, speak English, please. Both concepts were very interesting, and the acting was really good in both as well. I just think, again, the acting was slightly better in Speak No Evil, and I think the concept was much better in Spectral. And the plots were about the same. There was some shallow moments in both, but overall, there wasn't really any problems with either. So I had to, again, get nitpicky and pick that concept over this one. That's all I have for Spectral. If you guys enjoyed this review, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. I'm sorry I'm stuttering in so much in this video. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's early in the morning and my tongue hasn't woken up yet. But yeah, I'm sorry for that again. And make sure to check out my movie reviewing brother, Mr. Majoritarian. His link is always going to be in the description. He's the reason I started doing movie reviews. And every week we're going to watch the same movie in theaters in order to make a similar review so we can actually opinionate on it together. And you can, if you want to see his opinion, you can go see it. And if you want to see mine, you can come see this one. And this week, he just watched Smile 2 last night. I'm watching it tonight. So the next movie I'm going to be uploading is Smile 2. And that is going to be my 50th movie review. So what I'm going to do is every 50 movies, I'm going to do a movie review recap. And I'm going to go over my entire list and talk about each movie a little bit. It's probably going to be a somewhat longer video because it's 50 movies. But it's not as important for this first 50. But when the second 50 comes, once I reach video 100, then I'll see where the second 50 ranked amongst each other. So it's not going to be like, oh, this one is 57th and everything. No, it'll be first of this second 50. So, that's going to be coming up soon. Either way, I hope you guys have an amazing night. Peace out.